So the James Gunn DCU Slate future universe thing has just been announced. So officially called Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, which kind of a strong title to start off with. I like that it's kind of going bold and strong with it. And just to start off, I mean, this is a pretty solid slate. It has enough whimsicalness to make it feel like it's James Gunn-y, but it has enough of the core characters that we want in honestly like a little bit of a different light, so that it still feels like these are not fresh and original. The big fear going into this is like, is it going to be too out of there? Is it going to feel really weirdly, paced from what we had previously? Are we just going to see the same thing again? Are we going to have to copy Marvel? And it's not really doing any of that. It's kind of doing its own weird thing, which is really good. So first off, starting off, like, James obviously is like talking about, hey, it's me and Peter, trying to remind everyone that he's a co-lead, even though he's kind of the more active social media one. But then he jumps off in what I think is important is he kind of gives praise to the movies that are coming out, right? The Shazam, Blue Beetle, Flash, and everything, and then Aquaman saying like, hey, there's still great films are coming out and everything. And it's kind of funny because he's kind of like, yeah, they're coming out, they're gonna get wiped, but not really. I still think he's ultimately making the best decision here, especially after hearing this slate. But going into this, right? He's just kind of describing, saying like, hey, we're going to have a lot of different projects and there's going to be things in a separate universe, which I'm very glad he called out. And he kind of knew that he had to call out the Reeseverse, and he had to call out like Joker and some of the animated shows like Teen Titans Go as their own entities, which is good. I think we can have a DC universe where we have a couple different projects and everything. There should be a main timeline, a main streamlined timeline with a bunch of different connected projects that are its main thing, but it's okay to have like little small projects on the side and stuff like that, and sometimes even bigger projects, since DC is just like, a big multimedia franchise and everything, right? But then the difficulty is like, how do you make that distinction and how do you make it different enough for it to feel fresh? So first he mentions like, hey, we're getting a few animated projects, right off the bat, right? We're getting an animated project called Creature Commandos, which, like, just looking at this cast, you see this is immediately like a James Gunn thing. Like, we have Weasel, and I'll be honest, I don't really recognize most of these characters, which is awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad we're starting off with something weird. And again, this doesn't seem like it's gonna be part of the main big important like part of it, but it's going to be one of those fun little animation projects. The animation style here already looks awesome, and I can see them changing it up a little bit for the different shows, but I like how this is. It looks 2D, which big win if true, and it sounds like they're going to have these characters come into live action at some point, which just gives James Gunn another opportunity to have a project with these like weird looking characters already. But the consistency between the live action and the voice actors is very key. It's always an awkward situation where you want to cast the live action and you want to get a similar voice, or you want to have a similar charisma, and you can't get it. So already that's like a great sign. And something like this is like a light kind of like lead-in. Sounds like a good way to kind of maybe start the universe, even though he kind of said this is just the light beginning, right? And then he announced a Viola Davis, which confirms that she's still going to be Amanda Waller, a live action TV series, which I think this seems a little, again, it's a little bit of a weird one, but it seems like he just kind of, he doesn't want Peacemaker to end, so he's basically kind of, weaving this into Peacemaker and making a little Suicide Squad stuff on the side, and I guess that's kind of what maybe those commandos are going to do. So interesting way to lead it, and especially this as kind of like the early stuff in the first announcements. I think this is going to be a little more segue kind of stuff and smaller projects that are going to lead into a bigger thing. But yeah, he's kind of keeping his like closest exes, we knew, where he doesn't want to destroy Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, that little mini universe he had created, all in itself. So that was the first announcement. But then he pretty much says, here's the big first announcement: the Superman movie, which will start the hard piece of the Gods and Monsters Chapter 1 universe, Superman Legacy. First of all, great name. We've had, Superman 1 through 4, and we have Man of Steel, Superman Returns. We've had a lot of different Superman film names, and I think Superman Legacy feels like a strong title. But what does get me questioning a little bit is, obviously he's using the All-Star Superman visuals here, right? The cover of All-Star Superman, which he's been teasing a little bit of getting inspiration from that, and I hope that's where it remains, because All-Star Superman is a finale kind of ending chapter to Superman's story. Very clearly as you read it, but it kind of takes like the best elements of a lot of his different adventures, his personality, his growth, from his childhood to his eventual, life as Superman. So I hope it's more of like in this style and more of this hopefulness. We didn't get a lot of details about what it is. We just kind of know it's supposed to be a young Superman, so I hope it ends up being a younger Superman, even though it seems like what I'll talk about in a second is we're getting a slightly older Batman potentially. But still, sounds like a good idea to start off with a Superman movie, reboot it. That's a controversial thing. We don't get any casting, which is interesting, but that's okay. We'll be okay. We'll get that later. I know that's probably gonna be the most controversial piece. But the big thing, July 11, 2025. That's ambitious. I mean, that's in 2.5 years that we're gonna get a Superman movie and the start of the DC universe, which I know they have to be a little bit aggressive. So it sounds like 2023 is gonna be finishing up kind of this universe, and then 2024 is gonna be a very light year for DC. We're probably gonna get a few of the smaller projects and maybe some animation projects and live action. But 2025 seems like, okay, summer 2025, we're hitting it out of park. We're gonna have a big action movie, which crazy that 2013 for Man of Steel, so 12 years gap between having a solo Superman movie in a time like this, in a time where comic book movies there's 20 a year. Kind of wild to think about, because that's longer than the reboot between like Spider-Man movies and like a lot of other stuff. So yeah, it's weird to put it in perspective. Next, they announced the Green Lantern show, which funny because HBO had always been teasing a Green Lantern show, so I wonder if that kind of played a factor into this. It sounds like that was always in development hell and everything, but we're going to be focusing on a few different lanterns with Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, it sounds like, which I think is a smart idea. I think a TV show, maybe even an episodical one that goes onto different adventures and then kind of combines them, sounds like a good idea. Green Lanterns is tough with all the different lanterns, the lore behind it and everything, and I think a high budget, maybe low episode kind of TV show would be a good format for this. And also, like, I'm glad they're just announcing that second, because we've been needing a Green Lantern show forever, and we're getting it immediately, which good, because you don't want this to be an awkward like 7th member of Justice League or something that's teased again. We're focusing on putting him on the main JL. And then moving on, right? The Authority film, based on, I'll be honest, characters I don't really know anything about. I feel like I recognize some of these guys, but maybe it's just because they look like other characters. But this is exactly, like, James Gunn came up straight up said, like, hey, this is what I've been most excited for. We got to get a Superman film and a Green Lantern, but this is what I'm excited for. So this is going to be a passion project, like he said, and it's super exciting. And again, this is what I wanted with James Gunn. I'm glad we're getting the landmarks. We're getting the Superman, the Batman, the Green Lantern. We need those core films there. But we're also getting kind of like a weirdness to it. Like even MCU took a while before they did a Guardians movie and Ant-Man movie. It seems like they're building up maybe a Justice League team, but are also building up a few other teams. Like obviously we got a little bit of the Suicide Squad, and then now we're getting a little bit of another team that could be, I don't even know if they're off-world or on Earth or whatever. They could be eventually a villains team. Either way, they're building up a few different projects, and it doesn't sound like it's too many dissecting story points, because it sounds like there is a full goal for this chapter 1, which as of chapter 1 we've only getting a small piece of it. We don't know what the full chapter is going to be, but the title like Gods and Monsters, I feel like an apocalypse story or something is going to happen. But it's exciting because it seems like there's going to be a few different like entry points and a few different projects going on simultaneously that all kind of connect, as he said, to a larger, bigger story. But we're going to have a lot of different characters to follow, and it won't just be like, hey, here are the 4 pillars, and then here's a Justice League movie, right? It feels like this is going to be something kind of different. One other point, just to go back though, he also mentions he has 8 to 10 years planned out. That's the whole Infinity Saga for like Marvel. So the fact that he has 8 to 10 years planned out already is amazing. And I know Marvel and other companies probably have that already, and it's very light. like all those are probably so pre-production, like, or just ideas right now. But that's really exciting. And honestly, from the sounds of it, this chapter 1 could be more than just a couple films. It could be like a 10-year slot or something like that. We'll see what they end up doing, but a chapter could be the Infinity Saga rather than a phase. At least that's what it kind of sounds like, a slight implication of. But moving on to the next project, right? They have the Paradise Lost, where it takes place in Themyscira, Wonder Woman's home. It's a TV live action show, which, again, Wonder Woman was going to be an awkward one because we've had a successful Wonder Woman film, unsuccessful sequel, but Gal Gadot was pretty popular, and that was one of the few projects that worked so well. So to start off with maybe a show about the island and maybe introducing a young Wonder Woman, that sounds like it's a really good idea to make it different and to introduce it instead of just getting a traditional Wonder Woman film, because then obvious comparisons to one that came out honestly only 6 years ago, which isn't that super long in reality. So a TV show about the Themyscira sounds like solid project. Wonder Woman, the movies never really hit for me as much as I wanted them to, even though I can recognize the quality to some of it. And I think Gal Gadot could kind of range as an actress, but I think if we get a new actress, which hopefully it seems like that's going to be the case, this could be like a really interesting way to, one, build up the lore of that world and kind of explain Themyscira a little bit better and kind of make a new branch in this universe, but also to introduce a bunch of characters like in a natural way. And then, probably like one of the announcements that everyone's most excited for, we get a Batman and Robin film called The Brave and the Bold. So is that going to take elements from like the Brave and the Bold TV show and then that era of comics? Who knows? But the big thing is that it's a Batman and Robin film, which is something we haven't, well, okay, yeah, we've gotten it, you know, in my birth year of 1995. But this is the first time in a long time that we're actually going to see an on-screen Robin. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, it's just going to be Dick, right? It's going to be Batman and Dick Grayson, and it's going to be a young Robin. But no, it's Damian. And James Gunn straight up said, like, Damian is my favorite Robin, which, unsurprising for James Gunn. You know, of course, the loudmouth, like, kind of like crass, like Damian would be his favorite. It's a little interesting because I'm a little mixed on this. He said that he's trying to build up the Bat family, which is exciting, but it's so does like Dick and all the other Robins, is Jason Todd out there? Is everyone already existing? I mean, is there a Batgirl? Is there a Barbara? Like, it's interesting where they're starting off, and I know they have to go in a different direction with this because we have such a successful The Batman film with Robert Pattinson, who's already a young Batman. So if Batman's already a dad, it doesn't look like they're going to approach with a young Batman, I guess. I mean, maybe a late 30s at best. I mean, if Damian's supposed to be like 12 here, right? I don't know. It's going to be a little tough, right? So this is a bold direction, hence the name, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. This one is the one that has me a little like, I need to see a lot more, and I'm curious, but I like what they're thinking. It's just, how is this going to fit into it? How is it going to play out? But I think focusing on a Batman and Robin film, Robin being a huge element of the Batman films that has always been kind of lacking, but it's a core part. I think that'll be pretty interesting. And are we going to get another, Mando, Last of Us, Kratos kind of like dad, got to be a real bit dad, fatherhood kind of storyline? Maybe, but that's the trend, and it probably won't stop. Granted, this film is probably like several years out. So after that, okay, yeah, like, dude, you announced the Booster Gold film, which, yeah, like, dude, this is gonna be so good. It's gonna be a live action Booster Gold film, which, dude, this is like the biggest thing I could have wanted from like James Gunn, because like, it's a shame we're getting the Blue Beetle movie, and I guess that won't really connect to this. But dude, we're getting a live action Booster Gold. This is just gonna be like so funny. I really hope James Gunn is really involved in this project. Again, I think he's gonna kind of, as someone who's overseeing a lot, I hope he's really involved in some of the more whimsical ones and helps write with the writing. What a Booster Gold. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of just does a Chris Pratt casting, now that I think about it, which I don't know if I really want. I don't hate on Chris Pratt, I guess, as much as everyone else, but I don't want to see him like really on this. Nor do I want to see like a Ryan Reynolds or something like that. I'd love to see a fresh face with honestly most of these characters. But yeah, this you just know this is going to be so much fun, and it's something different. It's introducing a new character that general audiences don't know much about, but I think the concept is different enough of a guy from the future is kind of a loser who's like coming to the past or to the current day, and I don't know, that just sounds like it has a lot of room for like interesting technology, for interesting visuals, cool storytelling, obviously great character development. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm super hyped that he announced this. And next they announced this Supergirl film based on the run from last year called Woman of Tomorrow, which I think it feels weird to have a Supergirl film this early. I feel like that would be like a phase 2 thing, but it sounds like this is going to come down the line a little bit. Having a strong Supergirl live action, and it's going to be a film, not a TV show, sounds like a really good idea overall. I mean, it sounds like it's all about the trauma of your world being destroyed and everything, and I think it'll be a cool dichotomy with this Superman. If we're getting a young Superman who's maybe adjusting, and it sounds like he's going to be maybe hopefully like more of his reporter vibes and kind of like more human with an alien backing, versus Supergirl who's going to have more of a alien backing, kind of assimilating into human society. So I think they could do an interesting dichotomy about this. I hope it isn't like, I hope they give a little time for the Superman film to breathe, because I don't want him to become also another like father or mentor figure immediately to his cousin. But yeah, it sounds like a good solid Supergirl film is a good idea to get in there pretty early. And the fact that he's basing it off of a recent run, one, keeps it like it's good that they're not just always going back to like a classic story, right? They're trying to take something that's a little bit of the modern take on the character, but also one that sounds like, you know, he's very passionate about and has like a lot of ideas behind. And then we get into Swamp Thing, which has been something that we've been kind of teased. Swamp Thing could be a huge pillar in a section of the DC universe, and I'm very excited that they officially announced this. Like, Swamp Thing, they've tried to do Swamp Things many times. Like, I've watched the 80s films, and I've watched bits and pieces of the TV show from a few years back, which was actually pretty decent. Swamp Thing is a really interesting character, and James Gunn even said it, like, this is going to be totally very different. I think they're going to have more of a whimsical tone and a little bit of a lighthearted kind of tone and comic booky kind of feel to a lot of what this is, but this sounds like it's going to be probably, and just from implications, a little heavier, a little sadder. And I think if they take this and tie it into a lot of like modern day things with society and the environment and a bunch of other things, if they do something like that and toss in some like modern horror elements and some other stuff, this could be a really interesting thing. It's interesting it's a film, right? Because obviously we just got the TV show a couple years ago, and there'd be comparisons to that for the 10 people who watched it. But making it a film and making it like a big thing, like I think he could be a huge interesting character. I'm curious if it would be going through like an origin, or if this is just going to be more of like what I think is more interesting in Swamp Thing is just him like having existed in his like role. And Swamp Thing is also like insanely like powerful within the universe, and it's something that hasn't really been explored a lot. It seems like James Gunn is doing a good job helping this along with Peter, and he seems very excited. He's obviously responding to a lot of stuff on social media. We'll hear more stuff tonight and throughout the days as people keep on asking questions. I mean, we're not getting our first project probably till 2024 for this DC universe, and then it won't officially start till 2025. So we'll probably have a long gap between here and then maybe next Comic-Con when we get some kind of casting announcements, which will probably be the next big thing. Maybe down the line we'd eventually get a trailer in 2024 for maybe the Superman film, and but I think casting announcements are going to be probably the big thing going forth. I'd be surprised if we got announcements from any other shows, since there's so much already on the plate right now to talk about. But yeah, dude, this is exciting. Honestly, this is slightly better than I thought, because I was scared. I was like, is he just going to go his direction, just do all these random B-list characters and have a really weird universe and be to himself? Or is he just going to go, yeah, let me do the Batman, the Superman, the Flash, and the Green Lantern? And he kind of did both, which it's awesome, and it sounds like he is going to be smart about utilizing the film and television and animation, something that like Marvel is going into now, but it took a while for them to get into it. And I think they're going to maybe land this better, especially with the backing of like an HBO, which is going to put a crazy budget and like that has really talented creators behind it. These shows could be really good. It could be very cinematic, or it could be very personal, or it could be a mix of things. I mean, even what we saw with Peacemaker is awesome. I mean, Peacemaker is better than pretty much any of the DC stuff we've got in the last 10 years, aside from a few projects. And yeah, no, this overall sounds exciting. Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, is a great title, great project lineup. Just thinking of like obvious things that like might be missing. I know some people are hoping for a Martian Manhunter film. I think we would probably get that when we see a little bit more of a Justice League thing, which brings up the fact that they didn't announce like a Justice League, which hell yeah, I'm glad they didn't say, hey, we're gonna make a big team up movie now. They're introducing some teams, they're introducing some solo things. They're gonna have probably more focus on Batman and Robin dynamic and the Supergirl and Superman dynamic, and I'm glad. I don't want them to team up and like do a big thing. Obviously this is leading to something bigger. Flash is an obvious kind of missing character, and Aquaman. Those are coming out this year, so I think he had to recognize that there has to be some kind of gap beforehand. I mean, the Flash show is also ending this year, so there has to be some kind of gap. And he did say this is the Flash movies resetting the DC universe, so it's interesting for him to even bring that up. So I'm curious if that's actually going to play any part. I hope it isn't. I hope it's just a hard reboot and it's not like some things kind of bled through. Like I hope, you know, obviously Peacemaker and Viola Davis and a few of the characters who might stay and be the same actors. I think that's okay if we just accept that and move on. I think most of the cast should be brand new. I think it should be a hard reset. I don't think it should have some multiversal ties that you can bring back later. I'd rather just be a hard start, and I think that's what they're going for. We'll obviously see more when we see the movies this year, but yeah, really awesome announcement slate. I'm glad he did it in a video format. I'm excited to see what's to come, and yeah, pretty fun time. So appreciate y'all watching. Just me rambling in excitement for this. I don't know. I always hope that DC is gonna get better, and I you know, yet again, I believe it. Will I be let down? Probably in some projects, but I think overall, like, this is a beautiful direction, and got some exciting things to come. So thanks again. Peace out. Later.